Buffalo After Dark is proud to recommend I Barbecue for You. Pre-orders are suggested by calling 716-880-7667. I Barbecue for You, Buffalo's new barbecue destination.
Just move the coyotes. Don't do another expansion team.
Right? It would never crossed my mind. So somebody called the house when I was out mowing the grass.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
Yes, sir.
Holy shit, your face is like purple.
Are you still up? Now in your fifth season, it's Buffalo After Dark.
Welcome to Buffalo After Dark, everybody. It is Thursday night, May 1st. Yes, the start of another month. Of course, got Hanson here with me, and I know we've had a lot of stuff going on this week, man. How's it been?
Good. And you know what? Springtime is here, as you mostly know by now. Stanley Cup playoffs are just wrapping up in the end of the first round as we're getting there. And next weekend, I go away to Alaska next Friday,
Nice.
and I will not be here on the 14th, and we will not have an announcement for Road to 32 until after I come back.
Yeah, definitely. Enjoy the trip, you and Brett, and you'll be back in Seattle as part of it, so that'll be pretty cool. I know you're going to be checking in at T-Mobile Park. You're going to be doing Road to 32 with a ball game over there, so it'll be interesting to see how all that goes.
Yeah, I'm excited because at that point, uh, I obviously we went through T-Mobile Park. We were at the
Yep.
team store back in October, but we didn't really go inside the stadium and all that. But now I'm actually getting a chance to do that, which is going to be neat.
Yeah, definitely. Can you believe it's been 6 months since we've been there already?
It's nuts, really.
I know. I will say though, the one thing I don't miss our last day. Remember how we were up at like we left our Airbnb at like 3 o'clock in the morning to make it to the airport in time.
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh God, and the $5 a gallon gas. So I don't miss that. But no, it was a good time. Yeah, and pretty much from here, I mean, it's been a quick week already. But depending on how things go, I might actually head out to Cleveland this weekend. I might be picking up a Chevy Tahoe that I found. So my Jeep might be retired after 13 years. So we'll see how things go. But I'm looking forward to it. I found a really nice one. So definitely thrilled about that, and naturally where I'll be is not too far from the Football Hall of Fame. So who
Yeah,
knows?
that's
Maybe I'll take another trip through there.
and the funny thing is Cleveland is actually a candidate for 2025 for Road to 32. Well, we don't even know that yet. And again, we're not going to know anything, and we'll probably have an idea of like when Road to 32 will be revealed. I want to say at minimum when we do that, we'll likely reveal it on the 21st, which is the first week after I come home.
Yeah, yeah. So it'll be a good thing, man. We'll see how things all play out. But in the meantime, of course, we're gonna get into a lot of stuff. I just want to give a quick shout out to the guys at Redline Auto. Thanks for fixing my Jeep. So appreciate you guys as always, and of course, they're a good shop. So if you guys are in the Buffalo area and you want good, honest shop to work with, check them out. They're up in Lockport, New York. So my old stomping grounds before I moved. So great spot there. But of course, we're live on Facebook and YouTube. So if you want to drop a comment, feel free. If you want to check out last week's draft show or any of our previous episodes, go to Spotify, and episodes are all up on there. So that being said, the biggest thing we were live for about 4 hours for the draft, and of course, as people will see, who could have predicted the slide of Shedeur Sanders all the way down to the fifth round? And of course, Cleveland decided for the first time in many years, oh, we're going to take two QBs, and Shedeur Sanders is one of them in the
Oh,
fifth round.
jeez. Oh, yeah. I mean, we'll get to them in a little bit, but let's actually talk about the draft in general from the Bills. What did you think of
Yeah.
it?
Overall, I think it covered the major needs that we needed, and I love the fact. I mean, Mad Max, great pickup. Love the pickup. Fastest guy in the draft. And then as we went through, like virtually every single pick except for 6 of the 9 picks were defense. So I love the fact that we addressed a lot of the needs, especially with the tackles. I do like that we got multiple cornerbacks, which is good. got a big ass offensive tackle, which is a huge thing also. But man, how about trying to remember exactly who we ended up picking up. And actually, you know what? I'll take a look at the list now. But
I actually have it on me, which is funny.
yeah, but how about that one pickup? I think it was what 6'7", 335 or something like that
In terms of what?
of one of the tackles we ended up getting, or one of the defense, or trying to think who it was. Um, Damn, I can't totally space the name. Like, I know we got cornerback Max Harrison as our first pick. Then we ended up getting defensive tackle T.J. Sanders. We ended up getting edge rusher Landon Jackson, defensive tackle Deion Walker, cornerback Jordan Hancock, tight end Jackson Hawes, cornerback Dorian Strong, offensive tackle Chase Lunt, and wide receiver Caden Prather. So, not bad in terms of where we ended up going with everything, but
I want to say though that I think of all the picks in the draft the Bills took this year, I love the Landon Jackson pick because no one thought he was going to slide all the way to the third round. People
yeah.
projected him to go as early as the second round, and the fact that Bills were even able to grab him that early or at that point of the draft, I think that's pretty remarkable. And people have said that he is a big boy and he brings a lot of power and speed and he's going to be a great contributor to that pass rushing unit.
Yeah, and and when I look at some of the other things that we ended up doing, I mean, like you mentioned, Landon Jackson, great pickup, and he's a good size, 6'6", 264. So good to see that there. But then, actually, and I kind of thought about it now, but how about the tackle Chase Lunt, 6'7", 304?
That's a big guy, I'll say that. And he was picked up in the sixth round out of UConn, which is a very unique school to pick up a guard. But
Yeah.
I mean, I gotta say that. But I just, again, like you were saying, I think it's interesting that six of the nine picks that the Bills had in the draft this year were all defensive guys.
Hmm.
And just to break the positions of need down, they pretty much drafted three cornerbacks, two defensive tackles, one defensive end, one tight end, one tackle, and one wide receiver. So they really went all in this position. But I think if regarding the draft, I think if there's one thing that's abundantly clear, it's the fact that Brandon Beane watched the Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, no, I just remembered who I was thinking about. Fourth round, at number 109 overall, Deion Walker, the big ass defensive tackle out of Kentucky, where he ends up going 6'7", 331.
Yeah,
One
and
of
the
the
Bills
biggest
traded
tackles in
up,
the
and
draft.
yeah, the Bills traded up for this pick because I think they originally were at 132
Hmm.
and they traded up, I think, 23 spots in the draft to make this trade happen. And they made a trade with the Bears, not once, but twice. And they were able to pick up the guys that they wanted, and I said it from the beginning that the Bills were going to go into the draft thinking, okay, you go and get a defensive guy. But the one thing I've heard people bitch and moan about because WGR is a perfect example of this.
Hmm.
Is that they're basically Operation Mockingbird, where if they're not satisfied with a certain pick, they're like, oh, why didn't you address this position at the draft? Then you have Brandon Bean of all people going on WGR and said, quit your bitching, okay? We led the league in scoring in 30 plus points a game in the
Yeah,
last few years. It's like again, WGR is literally like a wannabe WFAN.
yeah.
That's legitimately what they
They're
are.
not nearly as good as they used to be either. I mean, a lot of it now is the company line, and I remember way back, before Chuck Dickerson passed away. I mean, he was on there for many years, and then Art Wander was on there for many years, and I've actually gotten to meet both of them. I actually met Chuck Dickerson a few times actually before he passed, and I still have his coach's playbook somewhere. But former, of course, coach of the Buffalo Bills, on the defense. But man, really cool guy actually if you got to know him. But back at that time, it was one of those things. It was like have a take and don't suck, and you can say whatever they want. They never pre-screened anybody. It's basically just say whatever you want. Now it's like, oh well, if you don't match what we want you to think about, we're just not going to talk to you.
Well, that's very childish because I
Yeah.
know that Well, I know for one is that that's a very liberal democratic way of thinking things, where if you don't agree with our opinion, then we're gonna just shun you. Yeah, that's very fucking mature. Yeah, pretty damn childish too,
Right.
if you think about that.
Exactly. Hey, that's kind of how our show came about. We don't care what you think about our opinion. You can have your own opinion. We just say what we think.
And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Everybody's got an asshole.
Very true. Our friend Brad out of Louisville, actually, it's kind of interesting because of course he used to live here. He's like UK boy drafted to pair up with fellow UK boy. UK fans here are very happy, and they should be. I know Ray Davis was happy as hell to see two of his brothers come up here. So, but no, I think overall with what the Bills did, they drafted where they needed it. Overall, it was a strong draft. Hell, even the NFL pundits are basically giving us like an A to A minus for the draft. I mean, a lot of them have us as having the fourth best draft overall out of all the teams in the league this year.
I think so too. And you know what? The Bills needed this draft. And it's not to say they weren't Super Bowl contenders. They already were. And they were at that point where it's like, okay, they're so close to getting over the hump. What do we
Hmm.
have to do? And they have to really hit this draft. And I firmly think they did because it's at the point now where it's like, okay, you get a young defensive end who's going to be the replacement for Kyer Elam and Razzle Douglas. So what I'm starting to notice is from free agency and the draft is the Bills are getting away from guys that are not only in their 30s, but they're also had some history of injuries, like guys like Amari Cooper, Razzle
Yeah,
Douglas, Mac Hollins, just to name a few. No, Mac Hollins had a great season with the Bills
he did.
with Josh Allen, but I don't feel he's gonna be able to put up the same type of numbers like he did with Josh Allen that he's going to do with Drake May.
Yeah, I mean, and right now with New England, they're still rebuilding. So I mean, I don't think they're gonna do much of anything in the season this year. They're just not there. And then look at Miami, how much of a shitstorm they are.
Oh God, the Dolphins.
Oh, their draft sucked.
Yeah, like who takes a defensive tackle at 13 when that was not even the least of your issues?
Right. In fact, we actually covered it too. It's like, what are you guys doing? I think we had like the most fun with that pick.
Yeah, it's speaking of which, speaking of the draft, and I forgot to mention this in the intro, is I'm making a compilation of the funniest moments from the draft, and I got a lot to cover.
Nice. Yeah, we did have some really good laughs on it for sure. But thinking about a lot of what the Bills are going to do here, one of the picks that I really liked. I mean, yes, we got T.J. Sanders, defensive tackle out of South Carolina, a good pick at the second round. But Max Hairston, man, there is a lot to like about him. One, character guy is going to fit in perfect with what they want to do here, but also the fastest in the combine at 4.28 40-yard dash. And yeah, he's a little undersized, 5'11", 192, but think about with the fact with having him and then having Benford, of course, Trey White's back and he's going to be here for the year. And then, of course, Dane Jackson. And then, of course, when you look at who else we ended up drafting later on with Dorian Strong, I mean, I like this group of cornerbacks that we ended up rebuilding essentially just through the draft.
Yeah, and also you have to mention too is that not only did they address the cornerback position, which they didn't really have to do much in that position. Like, yeah, you have some depth guys, but Tre'Davious White is not going to be what he used to be, and I think
Right.
anybody with a brain would have known that. But what I really find interesting at this point is what happened a few days after the draft was the tirade from Brandon Bean, where he said, "Oh, they didn't need a wide receiver, but yet they go out and get one in Elijah Moore for 1 year
Yeah.
at $5.8 million
Yeah.
dollars."
Good pickup too, and they got him cheap.
Oh, and the dipshits over at WGR say, "Oh, so the Bills needed a receiver after all."
What the fuck is the matter with them?
Yeah, literally. And that's what this degenerate Jeremy White said. He's like, "Oh, I guess they needed a receiver after all." Yeah, because you wouldn't shut the fuck up about it.
Yeah. Or maybe Jeremy White, it was in the plan all along.
He's a tool. I do not like
Yeah.
Jeremy White.
Yeah, me either. I've never liked him on the station, and I get it. But I just think he is way, way too much company line in terms of what his thought process is. I don't even know where he thinks about some of this stuff, but I mean, Brandon Bean all along, if anyone's been following, I mean, his plan was to get a wide receiver, whether they do it in the draft or whether they do it in free agency. The thing is, if you do it through free agency, you're getting veteran presence in the room, which is something you need.
Right. And I don't have an issue with the Bills getting a receiver. I want them to get people that can at least play at a solid rate. Like, look at it this way. I've heard people tell me that Elijah Moore, and I know this because I've watched him play for
Hmm.
the Jets,
Yeah.
and he has the talent. The issue is that Elijah Moore was brought into the NFL around at the time where I mean, it still stands true to this point, is when the Jets were a complete shit show, to the
Hmm.
point when Zach Wilson was the starter and Sam Darnold got
Yeah.
traded and all that bullshit. We already knew about this. So for Elijah Moore to come in at his age, and he pretty much wants to prove a point. The dude's not 30. He's the same age as Josh Palmer.
Right. Right. So you're getting a young vet basically in the room, which is a big thing, and it's a good thing. It could be a lot worse. In fact, even think about it this way: Amari Cooper is still available. If we wanted to sign him, we could technically do it for cheap.
Yeah, but do they really need him at this point? Because I
Probably
just
not.
read. Because look at this receiving room, and you tell me if they need Amari Cooper, right?
Hmm.
This is as of right now. The Bills have, excuse me, the Bills have Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Elijah Moore, Joshua Palmer, Curtis Samuel, and Caden Prather.
Yeah, technically we don't need him.
That's my point. And they basically, and again, going back to my earlier statement, is I didn't want them to get rid of Amari Cooper or Mac Hollins, but I understood why they did it. They want to get faster and younger.
Yeah, and then when you look at receivers like Khalil Shakir, and you look at who we brought in last year, Keon Coleman, the two of them actually did a very nice job for the most part.
He did, but I understand that Bean is a very prideful GM when it comes to the position of the wide receiver core. Like Tom Brady, for example, Tom Brady had Randy Moss and Julian Edelman, two
Hmm.
great receivers,
Yeah,
but he didn't have anybody that was considered elite outside of those two.
exactly, exactly,
Well,
and
maybe Wes Welker, but that's about it.
right, and he won multiple Super Bowl rings. So there you go. So it's kind of like the same concept here, but overall, in terms of where we went with the draft, I'm perfectly happy with what the team did this draft. And I think the biggest thing was getting those needs addressed. And they did. And they definitely bulked up size, especially with the tackles. And that is something we needed. I mean, more than anything, practically. And of course, we have an edge rusher now, too. So that's even better. But how about two interesting things I thought about? The Jets are stupid because how about quarterback Jordan Travis retiring after only 2 years?
Well,
Although
he
that's a
retired out
medical
of the.
issue.
Yeah, that's not really on them. That's not really on him. That's on the Jets for wasting a draft pick. But let's talk about the Cleveland fucking Browns.
Yes. Let's see. Two rookie QBs, five QBs total in their room right now, and Shedeur Sanders dropped all the way down to the fifth round, which meant that he lost about $45 million as part of that. Cue the Price is Right music. Du, 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 du.
Fuck that. How about this? Play The Office, okay? The Cleveland Browns quarterback room is literally a sitcom because you have what? Deshaun Watson, who's not going to play
Yep.
this year.
Joe
You have
Flacco, who's over
Joe
40.
Flacco, Kenny Pickett, that's three. Then you have Dylan Gabriel, and then you have Shedeur Sanders.
Oh, Jesus.
What the fuck? Okay, first off, why does a team need five quarterbacks? I understand Watson being hurt, and the guy's a douchebag, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But why do you need five
You
quarterbacks?
don't.
What's the point?
Yeah, there is no point to it. You don't need five QBs.
Yeah, but let's talk about this whole Shedeur Sanders thing because this is a big reason why the Browns are a goddamn joke. For one, if you go back a year ago,
Hmm.
Deion Sanders went on multiple radio shows and he basically said that, and I think this played a huge part to why teams passed up on him to begin with, was Deion Sanders came out a year ago and said, whatever team drafts Shador, I'm going to make sure that that's the team I want him to go, not what the team wants, where
Right,
he wants him to go.
right.
Oh, gee, I wonder who that fucking sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. And then,
It,
of course, when Deion Sanders has the tweet out there, it's like, it better not be the Cleveland Browns.
oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
That's right. I remember
Yeah.
now. I
And
mean,
then of course,
but
yeah, he did not want the Cleveland Browns. And guess what? And then of course Shedeur Sanders refused to take part in a lot of like the pro scouting days and things like that. So of course we had that issue going on. Then of course, I mean, what has Shedeur Sanders done at Colorado?
well, for one, Shedeur had multiple issues going with him. For
Oh
one,
yeah,
what you just said, he had a terrible combine because he didn't even participate in the combine.
yeah.
That's number one. Number two,
And
he had
anything he did do, his interviews sucked ass, including, of course, how did everything go with the New York Giants? Basically, Shedeur Sanders hated being questioned and challenged, and then, of course, he pissed off the New York Giants by throwing it right back at him,
basically, and
acting
it was
like a
also
prima donna.
yeah, and it was also said that he was quote unprepared for that interview. It's
Yeah.
like Kamala Harris when she goes up on the podium for an interview from like the big people that's not the Democratic Party.
Oh yeah.
She goes on a fucking bitch fit and she goes into hiding. Shedeur Sanders did the same thing, except he has no choice. This is not because he's running for president. He's doing this to become an NFL franchise quarterback. Shedeur Sanders is not good. And I don't care if his last name is Sanders. I don't care if your father is a Hall of Fame cornerback. I don't give a rat's ass about that shit. What I care about is the production that you put on the field in college
Hmm.
and what you were able to do in the NFL level. Listen, I wasn't a big fan of Caleb Williams when he came out of college,
Right.
right? But at least he played and was a first overall pick. Yeah,
Hmm.
he's a whiny bitch, don't get me wrong. But Shedeur Sanders is literally getting gift wrap an opportunity in the
Hmm.
NFL. And this shit hasn't even started yet. And Deion Sanders is already running his big fucking mouth about the whole situation.
You know what it reminds me of? How about LeBron and his son Bronny James in the NBA? And the only reason that Bronny James made the NBA was because of his father. But then once he actually played it with for the LA Lakers and they found out how bad he is, his son got demoted down to the G League, which is pretty bad. And he
Oh,
still
I
can't play anything there because he sucks. And it almost reminds me of that same situation with Shedeur Sanders and Deion Sanders, where Deion Sanders was great. Shedeur Sanders sucks. And then to show up unprepared to the combine, he can't do that. And then, of course, right after getting drafted, oh yeah, $100,000 chain around his neck, partying with a rapper at a nightclub, basically like, oh, I'm the shit, I got drafted. And it's like, Shedeur, you haven't proven anything in the NFL yet. In fact, how the hell did you even get your number retired at Colorado when you haven't done jack shit in the conference?
I have a better comparison. Remember this whole debacle happened with Eli Manning?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Archie Manning came out for both of the Manning brothers, both of them, specifically Eli,
Hmm.
and Peyton, we knew he was going to go to the Colts. There was no
Yeah.
question about
Yeah.
that.
And basically right out of the gate, Eli Manning refused to go to the San Diego Chargers.
Yeah, and the Giants drafted Philip Rivers, and I think like 20 minutes later
Yeah, they traded.
they traded for each other. Like Philip Rivers went to the Chargers, and Eli Manning went to the Giants, and there were some picks involved in there, obviously.
Yeah.
But look at and you know what? And I had this conversation the other day with my coworker, and I said that was probably the most even trade that you could possibly fathom in that situation
Hmm.
because you have Philip Rivers, who is almost a guaranteed Hall of Famer. Sure, he never
Right.
went to a Super Bowl, but he was great in
Yeah.
his own right with the
And Eli
Chargers.
Manning was not as good as Peyton, but he did win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, Eli won two of them
Yeah.
somehow. And
Yeah.
if you think about the stats, even though he's not the best quarterback statistically on record, he is statistically the most clutch quarterback of all time.
Right. Yeah. And even if you compare him to Peyton Manning, I mean, Peyton Manning won two Super Bowls at least, so that's good. But although I'm surprised that they got the second one because that was defense that bailed him out because at that point Peyton was washed up in his last season. But still, I mean, Peyton Manning, great QB overall, all time.
Yeah, but no. So we're all watching Shedeur Sanders, right? And I have a comment I want to read from Deion Sanders himself in a little bit. So this whole fucking thing is just a disaster because it's like you go in a year prior to your draft, your egotistic father come out and says, "Oh, I'm going to pick the team that he should go to, not what the league wants him to go to." And then comes the draft, Shedeur acts like his dad and says, "You guys should draft me because I'm the shit and I know what I'm doing." When in reality, you threw a bitch fit to the Giants. You refused to work out during the combine. Your interviews were terrible. So it's like, how do you project anybody in this case? And I feel embarrassed at this point knowing this is how is Shedeur Sanders looking back in that mock draft? How is Shedeur Sanders a top 10 pick at this point?
Right. And it's still, I don't. I basically. Oh, here's an even better thing. How about Mel Kiper's bitch fit about? Oh well, why? How dare the teams don't draft Shedeur Sanders in the first round?
Yeah, really. And Mel Kiper had the audacity to fucking say, "Oh, NFL GMs haven't known what they've been doing for the last 50 years or some shit like that." He called out every GM in the league in the last 50 years in the history of the draft. That all because Shedeur Sanders didn't get drafted in the first round. He's like, "How dare all these ignorant GMs pass up on Shedeur Sanders?" Like, dude, he's not fucking LeBron. Like,
Right.
chill.
Exactly. I mean, he should be happy that he even got drafted in the fifth round because, quite honestly, I was thinking as we got further and further into the draft, I was thinking he was probably going to go undrafted. I was actually almost wanting that to happen just to see how things go.
Well, it's even worse now because look at the situation. Because he was bounced around in the first four rounds, he didn't get drafted until the fifth round. We know this already.
Yeah.
But this is oh my God. This is where things get worse. So Shador gets drafted. Okay, cool. He
Hmm.
finally gets drafted by the Cleveland Browns. And Rob's like, please no Shador Sanders. And the Raiders said, please don't get Shador. Nobody wanted him. So
Yeah.
technically speaking, all 32 teams in the NFL passed up on Shador Sanders.
Right.
And my belief is the only reason why the Cleveland Browns even took a shot at Shador Sanders is because I think it's because two things. One, because Jimmy Haslam wants him, thinking he's Jerry Jones and he's just going to magically turn him into a franchise
Hmm.
quarterback. And two, I think Deion Sanders had something to say to this because Bill Musgrave, and I just learned this, Bill Musgrave, the great lineman for the 49ers in the Super Bowl era in the 90s, who played with Deion Sanders, it turns out is the offensive line coach for the Browns. And basically, he made a deal with Bill Musgrave and went to Kevin Stefanski and basically said, if you draft Shedeur Sanders, I'll work with the kid. And then I don't think that went through, honestly. Shedeur, I'm not sorry, I keep saying Shedeur. Deion basically pointed a gun to their head and basically said, "You draft my son, or there's going to be a fucking problem." And you
Yeah.
can even see the reaction if you look back in that clip, and I'm sure you can
Hmm.
find it. Is there's a clip that's going viral of Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, the GM of the Browns, who are just emotionless about this pick. And they just know deep down the dude sucks. And the only reason he got picked is because of name recognition.
Right. Exactly. And then, then things got even more interesting too. And this is actually one of the things that ended up coming out. But how about the prank phone call from Jax Albridge?
Oh my God.
Oh
So
yeah. So the Falcons end up getting fined 200,000. His dad got fined 100,000. The Falcons and his dad did an apology, and Jax Albridge was basically forced to do it.
well, I would be too, because your idiot son who somehow got your iPad and the password wasn't cooked up like it's supposed to be. How is it that a 21-year-old was able to get your dad's iPad of all numbers of NFL prospects and players across the league, and you just somehow found Shador Sanders' number? But
Yeah.
people have been making a big deal about this. Big people, it's like they're saying, "Oh, I don't like Shador Sanders, and it's funny that he's getting dropped so far down." But don't prank the guy because,
Yeah.
people are waiting and waiting and waiting for their name to be called.
Right.
And it's like you tease him. And this kid who clearly is old enough to be drinking beer calls this guy and basically said, "Hey, man, this is the GM of the Saints. I just want to let you know we're going to draft you. But hold on one second. We're going to have you wait a little longer." Click.
Hmm. Yeah. I, yeah, good job. Good
That's not
job.
good.
Yeah,
That is not a good
exactly.
idea.
Exactly. And you wonder why everyone gets burner phones for the draft day for that reason. But yeah, still really stupid on his part. But then thinking about it a little bit further, how about the good old Colorado fans are like, oh, well, if you don't make Shedeur Sanders a starter on day one, we're going to boycott you guys.
Oh yeah, it's funny because
Fuck you, Colorado.
Deion Sanders said the same thing. So I have a quote I want to read to you before I forget.
Yeah.
And Deion Sanders said this on Sunday, the day after the last day of the draft ended.
Mm.
So Deion Sanders wants to be at Shedeur Sanders' first meeting with the Cleveland Browns that happened this weekend. I
Oh,
think it
yeah.
happened today. So listen to this. So he says that Deion wants to obviously be part of the team, but this is where things get interesting. And I'm going to read you exactly what he said. He said, I have a few theories about why this happened, but I'm not going to give y'all a headline. I'll address the current situation and correct it as needed. I promise it will be handled accordingly. Shador is not going to take a backseat to any quarterback.
So basically, Dan's like, fuck you. You make him the starter, or else you make him the starter.
So this is what I don't understand. Why is it? And again, the only team you could blame for this situation are the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah,
That's they're the only team in the draft that has no direction of what they actually want to be.
exactly. And it's like, and one of the things I'm thinking of is like, if I'm the Cleveland Browns, I'm like, there is no way in hell Dion's going to be in that room.
Well, unfortunately, he is. And I think what's even shittier is, yeah, we already know about them having five quarterbacks, but it's like, what's going to happen? Are you going to just cut Dylan Gabriel in training camp because of Shador Sanders?
It makes no sense.
It honestly, this whole thing doesn't make sense
Right.
because it's for one, if a team like Pittsburgh or Las Vegas could have took
Mm-hmm.
Shador, a couple of teams that
Yeah.
took him like the Jets or
Mm-hmm.
the Falcons because of name recognition, it would have been funny as hell, but that was not going to happen. But again, this whole thing with Shador Sanders and with the Cleveland Browns with how they're handling this whole ordeal. I think it's blasphemous because if you think of what's happening here is basically the Browns did everybody a favor because they're already a joke. You bring him in and you have Dion down your throat.
Yeah.
Oh, oh my God. So, okay. So why didn't you do this for Shiloh? And granted, Shiloh went undrafted and he got
Right.
signed by the Buccaneers.
Right. But yeah, the whole situation is just totally all screwed up. But then, oh, it gets better. So now, if Shedeur Sanders does not make the Cleveland Browns roster, apparently the Toronto Argonauts out of the CFL has added Shedeur Sanders to their exclusive negotiation list.
Ay, ay, ay. I mean, could he at least go through a team in the NFL first if that's willing to give him a chance before any of this?
Right.
Oh, wait, that's right. That's not going to happen because everybody passed up on him technically.
Yeah, they did. Hey, and you know what it reminds me of? Remember Johnny Football, how he crashed and burned in Cleveland, and then the Montreal Alouettes ended up getting exclusive negotiating rights to the CFL for him?
I remember that.
Yeah, it almost reminds me of that same situation. It's like, oh, watch Sanders probably crash and burn in Cleveland, and then we'll have to hear about him in Toronto.
Johnny Manziel actually had talent, even though he was a bust, and I knew he was
Yeah,
going to be a bust from
it
the
is a
get-go.
cokehead, but
Yeah, he was a major, major, major cokehead. But the thing is, Johnny Manziel actually had talent. That was a
right,
big thing. Like
they
I
just
know
didn't
Johnny
build
Man.
around him.
Yeah, exactly. And come on, it's the Browns. But it's
Right.
like when Johnny Manziel was drafted, right? Johnny Manziel was in a very unique draft class because it's like he was projected, and same thing as Shador. He was supposed to go all the way down in the top three. He landed at 22. And I remember the Cowboys tried
Mm-hmm.
to trade up for that pick, and Jerry Jones was not happy about it. And Cleveland picks him up, and it's like, oh, there goes Johnny Football.
Yep.
And we all know what happened to him there.
Yeah, crashed and burned within a couple years.
Yep, and he couldn't stay out of trouble. That was a big thing with Johnny
Yeah,
Manziel. And he was a major coke addict and all that stuff. But Shador Sanders just sucks. And if you look at his record in college,
it's not
he didn't
good.
really play. It's not good. And plus, he didn't really play up against any real big conference teams. You know what I mean?
Right. He
Like he
didn't
never
go up a lot
played.
against a lot of D1.
Like yeah, exactly. Like he didn't play Alabama. He didn't play Michigan. He didn't play Ohio State. It's like you're literally playing teams that are in like the Midwestern area. Like you're playing
Yeah.
teams like Wyoming for God's sake.
Right. Well, Josh Allen came from Wyoming, but that's a totally different story. He actually was good.
Oh, okay. Josh Allen is considered an exception in this conversation.
Right.
Shedeur
It
Sanders
just
is,
sucks.
yeah, Josh Allen had a chance to develop. He worked his ass off. That was
Yeah.
a big
And he's worked
difference.
his ass off since getting in the NFL to become one of the like top 5 elite QBs.
More like top three at this
Yeah,
point.
exactly. I mean, you gotta throw him, Mahomes, and then we'll think of a third one.
Well, whatever. Lamar Jackson would be another one, but that's not the
Yeah.
point. Shador Sanders is not good. And the fact that teams even projected him, even us projected him to go into at least the top 10 of the draft,
Hmm.
I was remotely convinced that the Saints were going to be the ones to take it. But no, that's not even close to what happened.
Right, exactly. Here, buddy Brad actually had a couple comments. He said, "Why didn't his boy Jerry draft him?" So that was a good comment. And then he's like, "Plus the Browns probably trolled that pick." The Browns.
I don't know if trolling is the right word because there were talks that Jerry Jones, I'm not Jerry Jones. Like now you have have me saying Jerry Haslam, as we know, is an incompetent owner, and he's been like that for 25 plus years.
Hmm.
So nothing with him has really changed, for that
Yeah,
matter.
yeah. And Jerry's not going to be changing anytime soon.
No.
Unfortunately, we all know that. But But
Yeah.
yeah, fun stuff. So good luck, Shedeur. You're gonna need it. But there are a couple other things that are coming up real quick too. So I mean, overall, the Bengals might finally get some stadium renovations, and the Washington Commanders are one step closer to getting a new stadium at the former RFK Stadium site.
Yes, so let's start with the Commanders. So that's a pretty big deal. So their new stadium is projected to happen or at least be completed by 2030. That's in 5 years from
Hmm.
now. But the thing is, they cannot do any demolitions yet on RFK Stadium until 2026. So they have to wait a whole nother year for RFK Stadium to be completely demolished. Then they start the renovations, or not renovations.
Yeah, they're gonna
They
just
start take
tear everything out.
yeah, tear everything out and then build the new stadium at RFK
Yeah.
in 2030. But the Cincinnati Bengals are in a very interesting situation. So Hamilton County has released a MOU with the Bengals to start phase one of renovations to Paycor Stadium, which identifies the team and the county priorities and responsibilities and sets a goal of getting a comprehensive agreement by June 30th of this year. So the path to the comprehensive agreement is basically what this is being said is the county and the team itself advance in design engineering for renovation program and finalize estimate costs, and the county and the team work together to seek and secure state funding for the Paycor Stadium renovations, and then finalize an agreed upon term sheet in the MOU by June 1st of this year.
Hmm.
And then the final comprehensive agreement is set to be made on June 30th.
Yeah, and we've been there. We were there 2 years ago. I will say, are the sightlines good at the stadium? Yes. Getting around that stadium is an absolute bitch inside.
Oh yeah, I hated it. You know me. I
Yeah,
hated Paycor Stadium.
yeah, same here. I mean, in terms of getting around there, I mean, hell, we needed an usher to help us get to where we needed to be, where we went like 6 floors down to go all the way over and then go back 6 floors up. So yeah, that place was not great. But I will say, in terms of watching a game there, was it fun to watch one? Yes. We did our walk of shame across the Ohio River, obviously, afterwards because we lost. But it is what it is. But I will say, with Washington Commanders, though, going back to RFK Stadium, that's going to be very accessible to everybody. And the nice part about where that stadium's located, you have tailgating there, and you can get there on the metro, which is the big subway system in DC. There's actually 3 lines that go right through where the stadium is, so super easy to get to. You can just get off the train, walk right into the gate.
Basically, I mean, isn't that the whole purpose?
Yeah, and right now at FedEx, or now it's called Northwest Stadium out in Landover, you have over a mile walk from the nearest metro station to the stadium.
Well, the nice thing about that, and I've been to FedEx Field, It is a fucking dump. I don't
Yeah,
know what it is, but Brittany likes it for some reason.
every single thing I've ever seen about that stadium and things I know of where people have gone there, they hate that stadium.
It's really not that great. But the only reason why it's still there is because of the fan base and because Dan Snyder never invested into a new stadium in with the team when he was owner.
Right.
And then Josh Harris comes out of nowhere. And you know what? Josh Harris has done a shit lot more to renovate the Washington Commanders themselves or revive them
Mm-hmm.
as an identical
Yeah.
team than what Dan
Yeah.
Snyder
In
did.
less than 5 years. I mean, he's actually
Even less
been
than
a
that, like
yeah,
3 years.
yeah. He's been a good owner for them. So
Which is great too, because I think again, I like what Harris is doing with that team. I think he's doing a phenomenal job. I think it will take them some time to kind of get used to everything, but you could definitely tell that he cares, and I
yeah,
think that's great.
yeah, absolutely. So good stuff to see at least with that thing coming along. And then of course, one of the things that's been happening here is that Highmark Stadium keeps making full steam ahead for the progress, and the natural grass field is actually going to start going in fairly soon. So it'll be fun. Yes, we finally have natural grass after over 50 years of artificial turf.
I'm surprised at this point the Bills have not made at least yet. I would think they're probably going to release it by training camp. I'm genuinely surprised the Bills have not released a final season patch of Highmark Stadium.
They probably will. They probably
They'd
will
have
at some
to.
point. I would think that they'd have to.
I mean, that's an iconic stadium on its own, but
Hmm. Yeah.
the fact that I know people had mixed feelings for it because it's one of the worst stadiums in the league right now, but it's still a good football stadium for the time being.
Yeah, it's honestly it's not as bad as some of the newer stadiums, quite honestly.
Like I put it like this. I've been to Highmark Stadium now a handful of times. When it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
Ralph
you've been
Wilson
there what
Stadium,
twice with
when
me,
it
I think.
yeah, I went with you twice. Yeah,
Yeah,
one in 2019 against the Bengals, and then one
yep,
a
all
year
over
and a
there.
half ago against the Cowboys.
Yep, yep. Oh yeah, I remember we were baking in the sun for that home opener.
Yeah, I was not properly dressed for that game. I
Yeah.
remember
Oh,
just
I got
wearing an
fried.
I was in dungarees that day, and I'll just never forget that. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, yeah, and we scorched that guy's lawn, so we with parking on the dude's lawn, and then the portable grill we had actually caught some of the grass on fire underneath. So I'm like, okay, there's that, and we saw Harrison Phillips blow his ACL out on the field
Which
with
is
that
never fun.
opener, which that yeah, that's never fun. But then of course we had the rain game against the Dallas Cowboys, which that was a lot of fun. I will say that. So but we had wins at both games, so that's cool. So that worked out real well. But one of the things that'll be fun to see though is I do want to try to get tickets for at least one game this year for the last season of the stadium, just to be there and be like, all right, hey, I mean I've gone to a bunch of games there, and it'd be fun to see one more game there.
Well, why don't you go to the last game?
That's what I'm gonna try to shoot for. We'll see what
Yeah.
happens with it.
Well, obviously, as you know, and I said at the beginning of the show, is that we're going to reveal where we're going for Road to 32 when I got back from Alaska.
Yep. So of course that'll be coming out soon too. So we'll
And the
see.
thing is, like, sorry, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say that'll be coming out fairly soon. It's like within a couple weeks.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I'm going to be leaving for Alaska on May 9th. I have to
Hmm.
fly to Seattle next
Yeah,
Friday, and I'll be out at sea on the 11th, and the schedule will come out on the 14th. So realistically, I have to wait until the 18th of May to figure out like what we're going to do.
yeah,
And then at that point, I have to say, shit, what am I going to do? It's
right.
just crazy to me. But 18th is 4 days. It's not that bad. It's not like tickets are going to go like that, like
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, they'll be around. So, I mean, I'm not really too worried about it.
Plus, I like our chances this year with some of the teams that are candidates for World 32 this year.
Hmm.
Like we have teams like Pittsburgh, Atlanta, Carolina, Cleveland, and Houston. So we
Hmm.
have five candidates this year, but we can only pick one together as a group.
Right.
But Brett and I will do three like we normally do.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So it'll be a good time. We'll get it all squared away, and we'll get everything figured out. But I was gonna say, with about 20 minutes left in the show, I know this is one of the things you were pissed off about this week. Gary Bettman went back on his promise. There will be no All Star game. It's just going to be a league wide kickoff event now because basically Bettman's like, oh, well, the Four Nations game did way better than the All Star game, so fuck you, UBS Arena. You're not going to get anything now.
It's not even the All-Star game at this point. There is so much going on with the Islanders at this point that
Mm.
I don't even know where to begin. I
Well, at
may as
least
well
they
start
fired
at the
Captain Lou this past week.
Yes, thank God for that. So, Lou Lamoriello has been fired as the general manager of the New York Islanders. Go fuck yourself, go to a retirement home, and die in a bucket so your ashes will never be tarnished forever. Or maybe put it on a nice big juicy burger.
There you
Yeah,
go.
it sounds
Yeah,
fucked up by now.
yeah, but no, I know they were doing a lot of stuff at that arena though, like building like an all-star village and different things, and now it's like, for what?
Well, I will say in their defense that that's still going to happen, but it won't be for the All-Star game anymore. But let me get back to Lou Lamoriello for a minute. So Lou Lamoriello is no longer the GM of the Islanders,
Mm,
and operating partner John Collins will be the one to lead the search for the next general manager of the New York Islanders. And my philosophy is the Islanders are not even looking for a new general manager at this point. They're going scorched earth on everybody. They're firing the equipment manager. They're firing the trainers. They're firing executive
yeah,
partners.
they fired the radio broadcast team.
They're basically firing people from like Garth Snow and Jack Capuano. Like that, like we're talking about people that
We're
probably
going
been
back
there
like
since
over
what?
20 years.
No, no, no. These are people almost when Mike Milbury was there. Okay,
Oh God,
I didn't
that's
even.
like way far back.
Yeah, I mean, first off, fuck Mike Milbury. That guy could go fuck himself. So he will. I will never forgive him. And for one, I will say from retrospective that they are firing everybody, trainers, coaches, you name it. Patrick Waugh still has a job until the new general manager comes in. But that's not all, too, is that there's also going to be a change in the broadcasting side of things. So Chris Kling and Greg Picker are no longer going to be the radio analysts for the New York Islanders, and the team may not have a radio broadcasting going forward. So no two people are more devoted to those two guys than um, Greg Picker and Chris King. No, those two guys are iconic in Long
Hmm.
Island. They're like basically Rick Jeanneret before he went to
Right.
TV, kind of a thing. And it's crazy enough too is that Lou Lamoriello might be in the conversation for as the next general manager of the Buffalo Sabres, but it's like
Oh God,
fuck
no.
no, you don't want that to happen. Thank you. At
No,
least
we
I'm
do
not
not
the
want
only
him.
one to think that.
We do not
No.
want him.
Oh yeah, and you want to know what's really ironic be about this whole thing? Guess who the new general manager could be? And I'm not saying it's right now definitive, but could be the next general manager.
There's a few guesses, but I don't even want to take a guess at this one because it might not be a good one.
Well, one of the names that's being brought up is Ken Holland.
Okay, that's not horrible.
It's not horrible, but if you're able to get a team around it, sure. I mean, if you're good at drafting, why not? Ken Holland would love to be the
Mhm.
GM of the Islanders. That job, I don't think that many people realize, is so valuable
Right.
because the Islanders are an old team, yes, but you could rebuild that team in less than 2 years. You
Hmm.
could do it with the correct guy to run the charge. It's
Right.
very simple. If Ken Holland is able to work with Patrick Watt, or if he brings in his own guy, then okay, I'll be happy
Hmm.
with it. But that's how I look at it. But there's also bigger news that's also coming out of Long Island
Yep.
is the Las Vegas Sands project is no longer being pursued.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, what happens to the old barn at this point? Well, it survives for a little longer.
Well, apparently, and as I said before, the Las Vegas Sand project is no longer being pursued, which was a $6 billion plan, which is going to be turned into a casino on the site. And they were going to knock down the Coliseum and all that. But there's a very big reason why this is happening. And the proposed project would have included a 400,000 square foot casino, hotel, restaurant, etc. in Hofstra University, which is where my sister actually
Hmm.
works at, and various community groups vehemently opposed the project, and the future of the Coliseum is now once again unknown. So as of right now, Hofstra University and a bunch of other big economic people said stay away from the Coliseum. And plus, you also have to think in June. is where Andre Reed was a few months
Hmm.
ago, is where the Entertainment Football League or Association comes in play, and the New York Dragons are going to be playing there in
Right.
June. So I don't think they want to tear that down entirely.
Yeah. And and if it gets to stay around for a bit longer, or if it gets to stay around a lot longer, hey, that's a good thing. I mean, they can use it for a lot of different things.
Well, one thing I did hear is I don't know how accurate it is, but I'm not buying into the hype.
Hmm.
Is apparently the New York Jets want to buy the land, and so that they could build a brand new state-of-the-art arena or stadium in the old Coliseum lot.
Okay, that actually would not be a horrible idea.
Well, here's the thing. The issue with the Coliseum is, for one, the parking lot is very, very small.
Right.
That's number one. Number two, you also have to look at the surrounding area
Hmm.
because you have Nassau Community College, you have Hofstra, and there's a brand new cancer facility across the street within the same distance, within a 100-foot radius, 200-foot radius, or even more than that, like 500-foot radius from the
Hmm.
Coliseum. So they just built that building not even 3 years ago.
Right.
So it's gonna be tougher to get people to go to an NFL stadium in that area, and there's no train area to support the idea. Like you can't just take the train. And if I were to like to go to like City Field or Yankee Stadium, it'd be like, oh, take the
Yeah.
train, go up this area and there. There's no way around that, because
Right.
it's in the middle of just land. It's impossible to do that. It's like the Commanders right now. The
Hmm.
Commies don't even have that currently at their stadium until RFK gets built.
Right.
But there's no way of getting around there. You have to travel by car, or if you're lucky, go on a Saturday night, park your car at the Coliseum, and then walk. But the issue is that NCC is very strict about their rules when it came
Hmm.
to parking at the time when the Islanders were there.
Right.
So it's a little bit more difficult than it actually is.
Yeah, and it'll be fun to see what happens on that whole situation altogether. But hopefully they get it all figured out fairly soon, and I'm sure that they will. But one of the interesting things there was the draft lottery is coming up this Monday, so that'll be interesting to see how everything goes there and who's going to pick number one. But at the same time, we also have 8 coaching jobs available, and it looks like that the Rangers have their guy who might be one of the highest paid coaches in all the NHL history if they decide to go ahead and make Mike Sullivan the guy.
Well, yeah, that's for certain. Mike Sullivan is going to be the new head coach of the New York Rangers, and according to Emily Kaplan, she said that this is going to be the richest contract ever given to an NHL coach. For what? Because he coached Crosby and Malkin. Oh my God! Congratulations.
Yeah.
And second, Gary Bettman can go fuck himself about the whole UBS Arena thing because I never got around to touching that part. UBS Arena was supposed to be the host for the All Star game next season, and I remember
Hmm.
you and I a while back
Yeah,
said
we
that
had
if
even
the
talked about going to it.
yeah, I said, dude, you should come down and come see UBS for the All-Star game. But now Buttman here decides, fuck the All-Star game. Four Nations face-off was so good. Oh, we're gonna just cancel it. So basically, Bettman has other plans. So,
It might be an
so the
eight
All-Star,
nations face off by the time we get to it.
yeah. So the Four Nations face-off was a huge success, pretty much putting the All Star game in jeopardy moving forward. So instead of hosting the All Star game, UBS Arena will now host a kickoff event for the 2026 Winter Olympics rather than hosting the All Star game. And Bettman announced earlier this week that instead of substituting the All Star game with a Four Nations face off and another marquee event in the NHL, Long Island is getting what seemingly will be getting considered a consolation prize. And the Islanders said in a statement that they, quote, look forward to working with the league or any event that will showcase our world class facility. So Bettman fumbled this up big time
Hmm.
because think about this for a minute. Bettman said a few years ago that the Islanders were going to get the All Star game at UBS. And when I heard that they were getting it, I said, oh my God, that's going to be so cool. I can't wait to do that.
Right.
And then Four Nations Face Off gets announced, and it's like we don't even know if Four Nations Face Off was going to be a massive hit at the time. We weren't sure, and then it turned out to be a massive success. And then people were like, "Well, what's going to happen to the All Star Game next year?" And now we finally have an answer, and that is Bettman decided to fuck off and literally just cancel the entire thing.
Hmm.
Like, who does that? Really? Who
Right.
cancels the All Star Game just because you liked one thing over the other?
Yeah, exactly. That whole thing made absolutely zero sense. And actually, our friend Brad has a comment on here too. And I never knew this actually. He said it's sad I've never been to a Bills game, and he lived here for a long time. So,
Hey,
so
Brad.
yeah,
Brad, listen to me, buddy. Shut the fuck up, make some plans, and drive up to Buffalo. You lived there for 30 years. Get your ass up here, go with Tom, and go to the last Bills game. And I am telling you, as a man, do it. Please listen to me. Because you're only going to get one other opportunity to go to that building. Go to the last Bills home game at the old stadium before the new one. Please.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
telling
Let
you.
me know if you want to come up. I mean, hey, I got an extra bedroom in my house here. You can stay if you want. So,
Yeah, you two
it's all
can
good.
cuddle.
Shut the fuck up. Nah, he's a good dude though. He's a good guy, and I mean I've known him for many years, so it's all good. but but no,
You
going
two can
back.
play bedtime stories.
No, no. But that being said, though, I mean going back to the hockey side, though, I mean yeah, Bettman screwed up all this stuff.
No, Batman can go fuck himself.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? We might finally know the what the Utah no names are going to be. And one of the things that came out, it is likely going to be the Utah Mammoth.
Yes, the Utah Mammoth. So, a lot of people speculated that this was going to be the name after the whole Utah Yeti name idea was thrown out because
Mm,
Yeti said, no, we're not going to let you use it. Then people were saying, oh, what's it going to be? And if you remember a few months ago, back in February, again, this is when what's it called? Back in February when we were talking about the three names that were drawn when I was
yeah,
away, I didn't even know about it till I got back home from Orlando. And it was what? The Outlaws, the Hockey Club, and the Mammoths?
yeah.
Yeah. So people were like, well, which one is it going to be? And then it was later revealed that the Mammoth and the Hockey Club had their trademarks extended. So the
Hmm.
Outlaws were out at that point. So
Right.
people are now thinking it's going to be the Mammoth. And the only reason we know that it's going to be the Mammoth is if you were to look up at that time, it's not there anymore, but it's gone. Is
Hmm.
on Wednesday, the Utah Hockey Club accidentally revealed the name Utah Mammoth on their YouTube channel.
Yep.
And it says right here, in their description on their channel, it says official YouTube channel of the newest NHL franchise, Utah Hockey Club. And then where it says more information, it would say www.youtube.com/ at Utah Mammoths.
Yep. So there you go.
Yeah, so this is a big deal. So it's a big indication that this was the name that was chosen by the fans. Because to be fair, the Mammoths were one of the original names
Hmm.
that were in from the start, from the top 20 from all the other names that were
Yep.
chosen. Mammoth, a lot of people said that's a decent name, and there's some
Hmm.
really bad ideas that go with it as well. But I also think back onto this idea that it makes sense because, for one, Colossal Biosciences is trying to bring this animal back to life by 2028. And I actually told this guy, I had this conversation with my dad, and I said, watch the Utah Mammoth when they get named that in the future.
Hmm.
Watch them win the Stanley Cup in 2028, which would likely be the year the mammoth animal comes back to Earth.
Hmm. Yeah, and then of course, I mean Utah they sold out every single game this season, so good on them for their fans, especially with being there for the first year, and the Delta Center has been a great spot for them, and also the Utah ended up mentioning what they're going to do with that arena, and they're going to rebuild the lower bowl, and I guess they're going to use some new technology with the seating and all of that, so they'll make everything work real well in terms of making the sight lines work and not having to do a total tear out of everything. So no, good to see them. They're investing in it, but no, glad to see that they had a really nice first season out there, especially with making that move. And yeah, unfortunately, Arizona Coyotes, you're not coming back anytime soon.
Yeah, did I tell you I was able to get a Utah Hockey Club jersey?
You did mention that, and actually, that's one of the things I'm gonna do before they make the switch over. So
Well, you better do it now because they're not going to be there for much longer.
right, right. So we got that happening, but other than that, I was gonna say there really. I'm trying to think. Was there anything else we wanted to cover tonight?
No, I think that's it. But in general, though, a lot of people have said that I don't know if this is true or not, but supposedly, remember that mammoth logo that got leaked
Yeah,
in February? It turns out that there's another color that got added to the logo since the revival or since they revealed it. So you know how the logo is in the shape of a mammoth head
yeah,
and has the Utah mountains on
yep.
it and stuff like that? It turns out that there's actually copper on the color of the logo.
Interesting.
So you're looking at the combination of ice blue, black, white, and copper, like the Washington Capitals copper with
Yeah,
the Screaming Eagle.
interesting, interesting. Kind of takes a little cues, I guess, from the old Coyotes days.
Well, the Coyotes didn't really have that kind of a color. They had a Kachina design with
Hmm.
brown and mixed in with like green
Yeah,
and maroon and things like that. Like I know what you're talking about, but I don't think that
it's
it's the
not
same.
entirely the exact same though.
Yeah, but no, I think that it would be fascinating if that's actually the real logo. Like I don't know, but I know that people have been saying that looks like an ECHL logo or
Hmm.
something out of like Chell or something like an EA Sports NHL 25. Like I know
Hmm.
people were very harsh about it in the beginning, but I think actually seeing a better visionary look of the logo, I can actually say now that this if this is actually it, it's actually a pretty clean logo.
Yeah, definitely, and it'll be cool to see how everything goes for that fan base. I mean, the nice thing is they've done a lot of good stuff in their first year, and they actually made a pretty good run, especially down the stretch. So now if they can follow up on that and keep it going, good to see that market support their team. I mean, Arizona never did, but Salt Lake they love their hockey, so that is definitely great to see.
Definitely. And you wanted to mention the lottery real quick. I apologize.
Yeah, so the NHL draft lottery, well, we're going to find out who's picking first this coming Monday.
Well, as of right now, San Jose has an 18.5% chance to win the first overall pick. But then you also have to remember the NHL put a rule out a few years ago that said that if you won the first overall pick last year, you can't get the first overall again for within another 5 years. So
Right.
that's a rule that has to be applied this year because San Jose and Chicago are in the top two. But then you have teams like Montreal, Vancouver, Utah, Columbus, Pittsburgh twice, the Islanders, Anaheim, Buffalo, Seattle, Boston, Philadelphia, and Nashville are all in
Hmm.
the category this year.
Yeah, so, yeah, can you just picture if the Sabres were to get another number one draft pick?
I don't think they would. I think if they were to get the first overall pick again this year, they would not have any chance at all to get Gavin McKenna.
Yeah. I would
That's
rather have a shot at getting him.
yeah, that's going to be a big, big lottery to win, and
Yeah,
it's not even a guarantee at this point.
exactly. Exactly. So, we'll see how everything goes with the draft lottery, but it ought to be pretty interesting. And actually, Brad just messaged me on my Facebook, and he basically mentioned the Colorado Mammoth logo as well. It's like, yep, yep, definitely familiar with that. And which actually, good luck to the Buffalo Bandits because they actually go into the next round of the playoffs this week. So hopefully everything continues on the good track for them. And so far they've been winning, so good to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So with that, you know what? It's actually interesting. We only went an hour and 3 minutes. Usually we go longer, so I don't know what else to talk about right now except for I mean we know how the playoff series have gone and that'll be fun to watch what happens as we go to the next round. But sorry, Rob, your New Jersey Devils are out.
Yeah, that's okay. I think
Yeah.
he's all right with that.
Yeah, but no, I will say Toronto Ottawa interesting series, and then of course I mean Colorado and Dallas is definitely living up to the hype. So, glad to see how everything's going there, and then Vegas has actually been a pretty interesting series so far.
Yeah, at this point, I'm just waiting for the second round to happen. Like I know it's gonna happen before I leave, but at the same time, I'm just kind of looking at it and be like, okay, you know, let's see what the second round brings because we know that Carolina's playing Washington in round two, and more than likely, depending on the outcome of tonight, it's looking like it's going to be Toronto versus Florida in round two, and then um, the West I think is such a tougher conference to
Hmm.
follow up with.
Oh yeah,
Like in the East, it's a little bit easier to kind of see what's going to happen. The West, it's so wide open.
Oh yeah, and the West is like a powerhouse right now too. I mean, you have so many
Oh
good
yeah.
teams out there.
Oh yeah, you have Dallas, you have Colorado, you have Winnipeg, you have
Yeah,
St. Louis, who I think could actually make a push this
they
year, but I
could.
don't see it
Yeah,
happening.
yeah. Vegas is hanging in there like they usually do. The LA Kings are in there again like they usually are. So
Well, I mean, by usually there, you mean getting the shit kicked out of them by Edmonton?
yeah, yep.
Yeah. But I think overall, that's going to be it for this week.
Yeah.
And I do have one more show before I
Mhm.
leave for Alaska. But remember, guys, Road to 32, we'll tell you our city for 2025 coming up for Road to 32 when I come back on May 21st, and more than likely.
Yep. And we'll be back on our usual Wednesday or Thursday, depending on how things go. But other than that, hey, it was a quick show, but it was a good show. So, as usual, we want to thank everyone for joining us, and we appreciate you watching. Of course, everyone that's got us over 10,000 likes on YouTube now, and we appreciate that. So certainly, thank you for it. If you want to watch our previous episodes, of course, go to Spotify. Of course, you can view us on YouTube as well. But in the meantime, until we see you next week, take care of yourselves and each other.